Surprising cuts, controversial decisions, and a heartwarming story. The 53-man roster cut day for the Commanders, it had it all. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we're here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders. The official 4 o'clock deadline on Tuesday has passed, meaning that every team in the NFL has submitted their first 53-man rosters to the league office. We had some very surprising decisions coming out of Ashburn, Virginia, where Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, Lance Newmark, and the whole gang submitted their final roster. Guys, we're going to go into the ins and outs, talk about the biggest storylines from everything that we learned today with what the Commanders expect to do with their first depth chart of the season. But before we do, smash that like button. I keep saying it. We keep taking steps closer and closer to the regular season, and finalizing the first real roster of the year sounds like a pretty big milestone to me. So to celebrate, do hit the like button. It's the number one way you can support me. Once again, we cracked 2,000 subscribers in the dead of night last night / this morning. I'm so overwhelmed, so humbled by the support you guys have shown me. So to returning subscribers, thank you. To new viewers, do hit that subscribe button. Join the fastest growing community in Commanders Nation. Now, like I said, we got a lot of cuts today, which means it was a great day for some people and also for others. It meant they had to find a job at Arby's until next summer rolls around. You know, when you had to go, when you had to wait for Thursday, 3 p.m. to go to your history teacher's door to check the printed list in middle school and see if you made the team. This is kind of what that was like for these NFL players, except the difference is you're getting minimum wage versus generational wealth. Of course, I'm kidding. Some of these guys are going to be invited back to the practice squad. Some of them will sign elsewhere. And some of them, who knows, they'll be working, real blue-collar 9-to-5 jobs until they get their opportunity to try out for a different team or the Commanders again next summer. But let's start by reading off the list of cuts, and then we will go position by position to see who made the team. So all of these players were released. Sam Hartman, Kaz Allen, Demetric Felton, Tay Martin, Michael Gallup, River Craycraft, KJ Osborne, Chris Moore, Jacory Brooks, sadly, my guy, Jacoby Jones, Cole Turner, Lawrence Cager, Bobby Hart, Foster Sorrell, Timothy McKay, Michael Dieter, Jalen Holmes, Andre Jones Jr., TJ Magarayanga, Cleveland Farrell, Sheldon Day, Ricky Barber, Carl Davis, Norrell Pollard, Cam Arnold, Duke Riley, Bobby Price, Antonio Hamilton Sr., Carlin Viggers, Robert McDaniel, Ben Nickel, and Daryl Worley. So now let's go position by position to talk about the players who did make the team. And if we get to any talking points on the way, we'll go ahead and expound on those. Quarterbacks, they got 3 of them on the roster. When I put up my official predictions, I only had them keeping 2. Since Sam Hartman was released, we can all guess who these 3 are. Marcus Mariota, Josh Johnson, and Jayden Daniels slides in as the 3rd quarterback. He made the 53-man roster. He was on the bubble, but they had to make sure that they found a spot for this promising second-year player. So 3 guys on the roster. Look, obviously Johnson was the player who did not make it in my official predictions. I said, what's the point of putting him on the field, putting him on the roster? If you get to the third quarterback, you're screwed anyway, and there's plenty of competition at other positions. Why take the chance? Clearly the Commanders felt otherwise. I thought that maybe if they were going to keep a 3rd guy, they were going to take a look around the league, see who gets released, maybe sign a promising young player, or if a Jeff Driscoll, a Brett Rippon type player comes available, maybe you sign them. But they said Daniels and Mariota were cool, and then Johnson can be the 3rd. I don't know if Sam Hartman's going to make the practice squad or not. That if they're not keeping a young guy as the 3rd guy, the practice squad would be the place to develop. Also, we know that Jayden and Sam Hartman are best friends, so maybe that overrides development of other players, because Sam Hartman, I don't think, no matter how much time he spends on the practice squad, I just don't see him developing into an NFL level player, even as a backup. But hopefully, hopefully I'm proven wrong. I want everybody to succeed. So Sam Hartman, go do some bicep curls, get your arms stronger, come back and make this team next year. Running back, probably going to spend the least time on this. Bill, C-Rod, Ekeler, McNichols. We knew who the 4 were going to be. They taught the front office and the coaching staff talked endlessly about finding a role for Kaz Allen, but unsurprisingly, one does not exist on this team as currently assembled. Look for him to be added to the practice squad if he is still around. Demetric Felton also did not make the team. Wide receiver, one of the most controversial rooms on this entire team. They only kept 5 of them. And spoiler, guys, to the Luke McCaffrey crowd, you're not going to like this, but Luke is on the team. The full list of players: Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Jalen Lane, Deebo Samuel, and Luke McCaffrey. I led off the list of receivers that didn't make it. That included Jacory Brooks, who was my guy, the UDFA out of Louisville. Also, if he's still around, look for him to be on the practice squad. KJ Osborne did not make it. Chris Moore did not make it. Michael Gallup did not make it. He was actually one of the first releases that were announced. Tay Martin also not in the room. Let me say this. If I'm looking at one position on the roster, I expect the Commanders to bolster. It is 1,000% this wide receiver room. Don't forget, last year on their first unofficial depth chart release, they had 7 players. Byron Pringle was the 7th receiver on the team. And I don't even know if Noah Brown was on the team at that time. He could have been, but there's also a chance that he wasn't. So look for them to be active here. Some other receivers who were released from around the league. Deontay Johnson, slow your horses. I'm not advocating for him necessarily. I'm just saying that is a big name receiver who is available. He does seem to have some locker room issues. Don't know him personally, never been in the locker room, so I can't say that for sure, but it does just seem as if he wears out his welcome wherever he goes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he comes into a strong culture and proves differently. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was the best deep ball receiver in the NFL last year, which is weird since he also doesn't know how to catch a football. So I don't know if the Commanders would be interested in him or not, but he is available. KJ Hamler, also available. And then Malachi Corley, who coming out of college was compared to a young Deebo Samuel, he is also available after he was released by the New York Jets. So maybe he is someone to keep an eye on. The 4 tight ends, this one was easy. It was the same exact tight ends that they rostered last year, and I would assume the same order on the depth chart. Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott, and Colson Yankoff. Look for Yankoff to be a standout on special teams, maybe to get some work on the offense. It depends on Ben Sinnott's development. I know a lot of people are frustrated with Sinnott right now, but give him some time. He's adjusting to the NFL. It's hard for players who aren't superstars or just really good talents. Like, you can hit on a Puka Nacua, a late round pick like that. But give Ben Sinnott some time. It's not every day that a second round pick comes in and is immediately an all pro level player. He's learning from Zach Ertz. He's learning from John Bates. By the end of his second, start of his third year, look for him to really produce then. And if not, then you can have these hard conversations. Tackle. Actually, let me just tackle the double entendre. Let me just tackle the offensive line all at once because they kept 9 guys, but certain decisions were influenced by Sam Cosmi. The Commanders' Pro Bowl guard will start the year on PUP, which means that he cannot play in at least the first 4 games. I had thought when I put out my predictions, I had Cosmi on the team. I had thought the Commanders were going to put him on the active roster, even if he wasn't ready for week 1, in hopes that he could be playing by week 3, week 4. Dan Quinn had indicated that Cosmi was hitting the markers, but ultimately he did not make this opening 53-man roster. And I don't hate that because you're not rushing him back. Give him some time to really recover. Also, the Commanders start the year against the Giants, who have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. That would just be a difficult situation for him. So if we're all looking at the actual roster breakdown, the Commanders kept 4 or 5 tackles, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm going to call it 4 because one of their tackles is probably going to start the year playing guard. So those 4 tackles they have right now, Laramie Tunsil, Josh Connerly Jr., Trent Scott, and George Fant, who was only signed about a week ago. And when I did my predictions, I said I wanted to keep Fant on the roster more than anybody. However, I felt that I needed to roster a backup center, but the Commanders, they ultimately decided not to. More on that in just a minute here. At the guard spot, Commanders got 3 of them to start the year. Obviously, Cosmi will rejoin when he is healthy, but it's going to be Nick Allegretti, Brandon Coleman, Chris Paul, and I say 3. I don't know what to do with Andrew Wiley because he is a tackle by trade. He started at right tackle last year, but he was playing left guard when Brandon Coleman was dealing with his injury. Then he went back to right tackle. Now I think he might be used on the left or the right, depending on the health of Coleman and Cosmi's not there. So if Allegretti starts at right and he doesn't do well, or Allegretti goes down, does Wiley go to right guard? Not totally sure. But just for right now, while Cosmi's out, I'm going to call Andrew Wiley a guard. So 4 guards, I guess, technically. Only 1 center, Tyler Biadasz. I had rostered Michael Dieter in my predictions purely because I had heard that the Nick Allegretti snaps had not been going very well at practice. Allegretti can play the backup center spot, and that's probably what he's going to do for the Commanders as they are currently assembled, unless they decide to pick someone else up who was released somewhere around the league. Obviously, the Commanders feel good enough in Allegretti as a backup center that they're willing to roll the dice here. So, once again, your offensive linemen are going to be Tunsil, Connerly, Scott, Wiley, Fant, Allegretti, Coleman, Paul, and Biadasz, with Sam Cosmi eventually returning from his injury. At the defensive end / edge spot, this is where it gets even more interesting. There were some no-doubters. Your Von Millers, your Dietrich Wises, your Dorrance Armstrongs, they were making it. Jacob Martin, who I was low on about a month ago, and all of a sudden I've just done a 180 on this guy. I can't wait to see him on the field. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste makes it onto the roster. That means that Andre Jones Jr., Jalen Holmes, and the big one, Cleveland Farrell, will not be on the team this year. Now, JJB is he's a second-year pro. He's shown flashes. DQ and Joe Wood Jr. have talked about the improvements to his strength, his speed, his athleticism during the offseason. They did seem very excited about him, but he was banged up last year. He was banged up a little during camp, didn't really produce during the preseason games. So I was pretty down on him. But obviously, they've seen enough from him in practice to have enough faith in him to put him on the roster. So shout out to JJB. We'll see what happens. The defensive tackle spot, they only kept 4. Javon Kinlaw, Daron Payne, and Johnny Newton were never missing this team. We knew that they were going to be there. The question was, do they keep Eddie Goldman? Do they keep Sheldon Day? Do they keep both? Do they keep neither and look to sign someone else or trade for someone? They ended up going with Eddie Goldman. Got to admit, I'm a little surprised. I understand it because they signed Goldman as a free agent, so obviously you want to find a home for him on this roster. However, I thought Sheldon Day was actually all right last year. He also looked a lot better than Goldman did during the preseason to my eyes. However, I'm not there at the joint practices. I'm not there at all of their practice sessions. I'm not trying to suggest that I know the roster better than Joe Witt and Dan Quinn. So once again, they have seen enough to ultimately feel comfortable in their decision-making. I just didn't see it coming. But the DTs, Kinlaw, Payne, Newton, and Goldman. Linebacker, you got 6 of them, which means, I just want to double check, this means that there are more linebackers than anyone else on the roster. Technically 7, because Von Miller's technically an outside linebacker, but I just put him at DE / edge because we know he's going to be rushing the passer. But the linebackers that they're keeping, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Kane Medrano, Jordan McGee, no surprises there. Nick Ballore does get in as the special teams ace. And Ale Kaho, everyone's favorite UDFA, him or Jacory Brooks, but it really seemed like Kaho, he won a lot of hearts during the preseason, and he was sensational in that 3rd game against the Ravens. And a UDFA linebacker out of UCLA makes it onto the team. That means the Commanders now have 2 rookie linebackers from UCLA. They got Kane Medrano and Ale Kaho. Actually, let me just double check that Kaho is a rookie. I know he's a UDFA. That would be pretty embarrassing if he's not. No, okay, cool. Oh, wow. He played his first year of college in 2018. I was looking at him being 25. I was like, how is this guy actually a rookie? But no, he played 3 years at Bama from 2018 to 2020, played 1 year at UCLA in 2021, doesn't play in 22 or 23, and he played last year in 24, and now he's a UDFA. Okay, well, I guess that explains why he looked a little more pro-ready, because that is an awful lot of time to develop and get ready for the NFL level. But even still, as a UDFA, you're far from a guarantee to make the roster, and Ale Kaho did exactly that. And he looked like a very sure-handed tackler, someone who could learn an awful lot from Bobby Wagner if he can pair those skills with his ability to read pulling guards, read zone coverage, find the soft spot, all that stuff, develop his instincts. So we'll see what happens to him, see if he actually gets out on the field this year. Cornerback. The Commanders are keeping 5 of them, and one of them is very interesting, which I'll elaborate on in just a moment. Marshon Lattimore, Trey Amos, Mike Sainristil, Jonathan Jones, Noah Igbenogany. There were a bunch of reports from around the league, headlined by one from Diana Rossini, the great Diana Rossini of The Athletic. She said that the Commanders were fielding trade calls on Noah Igbenogany in the hours leading up to the roster cut. And this proved to be a controversial topic online, which I've got to admit, I'm a little surprised by. I know that having depth at a position is great, obviously, no matter what. The cornerback room does seem to be a stronghold of the Commanders. And yes, if Lattimore goes down and if Amos goes down, you want to have players who can play inside, play outside. Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenogany and Mike Sainristil seem to be capable of doing all of that. Here's what I would say, though. While cornerback might be a strength, you might have depth. You don't have depth at other positions on the roster. You also start every year with 7 picks in the draft. The Commanders just a couple of days ago, they only had, excuse me, they only had 5 on their roster a couple of days ago. You get up to 6 with the B-Rob trade. Now you could get back to 7 by trading Noah Igbenogany. And I'm not saying this to send him off for a 7th-round pick, but if you could get a 4th-round pick for a guy that you didn't give up anything to get, well, that's a pretty worthy decision to make in my eyes, especially if you're confident in Antonio Hamilton Sr. or Carlin Vigors, whoever would theoretically come up as a fifth cornerback on the roster. Or maybe you add some more depth at another position. Maybe you can bring up a Jacory Brooks or a Robert McDaniels, someone like that. Maybe you bring Sheldon Day back, whoever. But I do think it would be worthy to trade Noah if the right offer comes along. Obviously, that offer did not present itself, but something to monitor over the next week or so. And then to close this on out, actually, that's not true. We got special teams to round us out. Up next, safeties. The five that are really no surprises here: Quan Martin, Jeremy Reaves, Tyler Owens, Will Harris, and Percy Butler. They are all on the team. Once again, no surprises. Some people were questioning if Tyler Owens was going to make it, but I really never thought as if that was in doubt. Not only is he an outstanding special teams player, but he showed some real flashes of being able to physically play the run, crash downhill, crash through the gaps really well, shoot the gaps. And so I'm excited to see him, not just on special teams, but on defense. And then the special teamers, at kicker, you got Matt Gay, punter Tressway, long snapper Tyler Ott, and that is your 53-man roster. Once again, Sam Cosmi will be on this roster, but he's starting the year on PUP, so he cannot play for at least the first 4 games. Some of the talking points here, I already discussed a lot of them, but 3 QBs on the roster, Josh Johnson included. You're screwed if you get to your third quarterback anyway, if Jayden and Mariota are not available. But I guess there are just no other young quarterbacks around the league they looked at and said, yeah, we want to roster you. 5 wide receivers, like I mentioned, I fully expect another wide receiver to be added to this list. Hunter Renfrow is another free agent who I did not mention. That could be someone they look to bring in. Matt Gay on the team, obviously that was going to happen because they can't cut him for someone else. That being said, a couple of other notable kickers around the league have been released. Dustin Hopkins, who we don't have a great history with, but John Parker Romo is another guy who's interesting. You might remember him from that Patriots preseason game. He nailed a 57-yarder. He had some solid numbers during the preseason this year and in his first NFL season with the Vikings last year, so he could be somebody you look at to bring into some competition. And then the Noah Igbenogany trade calls, I did discuss that. Again, a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, I would say pass, but if you can get a 4th round pick and you get back to having 7 picks in the next draft, I would say that's worth the deal getting done. I was having a conversation with someone in my comments on a recent video, and basically what I was saying was the more draft picks you have, the more opportunities you have to land a gem. Now, you want those picks to be as high up as you possibly can because that's where the best potential exists. But at the same time, we see guys taken in the first round, guys taken in the second round bust all the time. On the flip side, we're really excited about Jordan McGee, who's a 5th rounder, Kane Medrano, who's a 6th rounder, Bill, who is a 7th rounder, Ali Kaho, who is a UDFA. So if you can add a 4th round pick, sure, you might not have the typical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Commanders in that case would have what? They would have 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But no, sorry, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7. Yes, that's what they would have, which again isn't the typical what's the word I'm looking for here? The typical composition of draft picks, but even still, it could prove it to be worth it. But guys, this is going to do it for my video here today. I'm driving down to Georgia. I'm going to be attending my future sister-in-law's wedding this weekend. So I'm going to have a video come out tomorrow morning. Probably not going to be able to get 2-a-day uploads. And also, you notice my background will look a lot different while I'm down there. But still, I'm going to do my best to upload at least once every day. The only exception might be the actual wedding day on Saturday, but once again, I'm going to do my best. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and if you support me and want to support the content, do hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. Again, go to the comment section. Let me know what you thought about these roster day decisions. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.